Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ryan at SFS showing you how to get new recruiting and staffing clients every time with no video or content. Here's how. Niche right, brand right, website right, email right, follow-up right, converse right, and close right. This is how to do it. Why should you listen to me? Back in the olden days of 2014, I built a wonderful recruiting agency that scaled to 7 figures in 7 months. Then 2 years later, I finally yielded to unsolicited offers to purchase from a much bigger agency and had a successful exit. It goes to show you that when you achieve momentum in a niche, things can absolutely explode for you. And that's what happened to me. And it turns out that it wasn't a fluke, because for the last 6 years, I have helped dozens and dozens of wildly successful agencies that started from nothing, such as Restaurant Zone and Keeple, scale to 7 and 8 figures and beyond. And I will absolutely make sure that you get there too, if you're ready to commit. So let's do it. Let me show you how this is done. First of all, I noticed a few recruitment gurus out there teaching people to make content and videos and stuff like that to attract their clients. And man, it sure does look exhausting. I don't know about you, but I have kids and a family and a life, and I don't like to spend my whole day pitching to one prospect. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm sure it does work to make personalized videos eventually. All I'm saying is that I don't have time for it. I've never done it, and I like to move a lot faster. So making videos at a 1-to-1 ratio is frankly a full-time job all by itself. I can't do it. If it's a prospect that I'm 1,000,000% sure about for one reason or another that I want to go after, sure, maybe I'd consider making a video, although I haven't done it yet. And I've never been 1,000,000% sure about one prospect. I don't even think that's possible, given the principles of math and all that. So what I am 1,000,000% sure about, though, is that what I'm going to tell you about here works. It works over and over every single time. Here's a more efficient way to get what you need to get. You need clients, you need traction, you need clients and traction to get paid. The clients are going to pay you, so that's the first thing that we need. Friends, here's how we do it. We got to niche right. So first we have to niche right. Sometimes you got to be ready to pivot with your niche. You have to be in a market that has momentum. There's a bunch of layoffs happening in your niche right now. Obviously, that's a red flag. You have to be nimble and ready to pivot. If there's huge investment happening in your niche or in an industry that you're considering, that's a great sign. If you're not doing it already, you might want to subscribe to Business Insider, Financial Times, Economic Times, various other subscription-based business publications that are going to give you the inside scoop on where investment is flowing right now and what industries are in hard times. Keep in mind that there are also evergreen industries. An evergreen industry is something that never gets too high or too low. For example, healthcare. It usually doesn't matter how bad the economy gets. Healthcare is going to get funded because people need it regardless. So what are the types of publications that you want to keep a lookout for? What are the types of articles that should give you signs of either warning or positivity? A lot of times you don't even have to look at the paid subscriptions. Even looking at your LinkedIn newsfeed could help you. Anybody who's been on LinkedIn between 2023 and 2024 has seen lots of layoffs in software. Now, does that mean all of tech is just doomed right now? No. Over the same periods, lots of investment into AI. You're going to see lots of investment into chips. You're going to see lots of investment into hardware. So this gives you an indication of what sub-niches or sub-markets are experiencing momentum right now. So you need to go where the money's flowing. So parameter number 1 is momentum. Does the niche have momentum? Yes or no? Is the niche evergreen? Yes or no? And then parameter 2 is pain. Does the market perceive that they have pain in finding people? If you look at the news publications surrounding your niche, and there are talks of the working population retiring and companies having issues with succession planning and replacing retired professionals with good young talent, that might be a good sign. On the other hand, if the market thinks that they can just post a job ad and get as many candidates as they want anytime, that's probably not a good sign. So you can simply go and look at job ads on LinkedIn and see how many applicants are actually applying to them. If all the jobs in your niche are getting 200 plus applicants, that might be a bad sign. If all the jobs in your niche are getting less than 10 applicants, that could be an indicator of pain. So notice that this is research that literally anybody can do. You don't need any fancy tools. You don't need to give Dun & Bradstreet your credit card. You don't even need Sales Navigator for what I'm telling you to do so far. Although I do recommend that you get Sales Navigator. You just need to do a few quick searches. So let's assume that you have decided that your market has pain in a particular area. Are you going to be able to acquire the medicine to medicate that pain? So this is parameter number 3 for determining a good niche. In other words, candidate access. What do I mean by medicine? Well, it's simply a metaphor. I mean people. I'm talking about people. Not just any people. They have to be the right people. They have to be the type of people that are going to be the solution to the pain of your market. Can you access them? What's your plan? How are you going to access these people? Do you have a way to get into their inbox? Do you have a way to call them? Can you use some kind of premium messaging service to get their attention? Are you going to go put up billboards or post flyers around town? Do you have a special network in the industry that gives you some kind of access to these folks? Are you in some kind of professionals only Facebook group where a whole bunch of these professionals hang out? Are you going to network events where these people congregate? So you have to know how you're going to contact them. If there's a huge pain in your market, but you have absolutely no way to contact the people that you need in order to solve that pain, then you're not meeting this parameter or criteria for having a good niche. If the prospect's job ads are getting no applicants, just remember that there's a good chance that your job ads are not going to get any applicants either. Your job ads are probably going to get less applicants than theirs will in a lot of cases, unless you have a different job ad strategy. Maybe you notice that your prospect job ads are just really bad and you can do better. Cool. Maybe that's your angle. Maybe you're an advertising genius and you'll know how to tap into this market better than your prospects can. If that's the case, cool. Maybe that's your angle. The point is, make sure you have an angle for this. If you don't, well, that's going to be a major problem for you. If your market is on LinkedIn and you can leverage a Sales Navigator account or a LinkedIn Recruiter account, or you know how to harvest data from LinkedIn that enables you to contact these folks, or you know how to automate LinkedIn outreach, well, then you might be in good shape. If you know of a resume database that holds a lot of the types of people that you need to get a hold of, then you might be in good shape. Here's the good news. In this day and age, there's more access to this data than ever before. We've got solutions for you, but the data that you need and the channel that you're going to leverage is going to depend on your niche. Next is brand right. So let's talk about how to brand right. So here's the thing. Most staffing and recruiting agencies have horrible brands. In literally every case of a struggling agency, they have bad brands. We don't just build a brand, make a logo and website just to throw it out there so that we can move on to the next step. This is an extremely important step. I want you to take it seriously and I want you to give it a lot of thought. And luckily, it's easier than ever to get really good inspiration for creating a good brand because there are literally hundreds of brand name generators and AI tools and good brands out there from which to get inspiration. Now, can you just rely on AI to completely create a brand for you? No, of course not. But the things that are on the internet now can provide a lot of inspiration, and you can also determine what is already in use and what is already likely to be copyrighted. You can quickly go to any domain registration provider, search up a domain, and see if it's available. So here's what I recommend that you do to get started. Again, we have to start within some parameters. So right off the bat, I'm going to recommend that you leave the word staffing and recruiting right out of the name altogether. So that's parameter number 1. You're not a recruiting company. You're not a staffing company. You're not a talent company. But you are those things, of course, but you're not going to be branded like one. I want you to brand like the biggest companies in the world. I want you to look at those companies. Precisely 0 of them have the words talent or recruiting or staffing in their brand. And yes, that's even if they happen to be a staffing or recruiting or talent company. So I challenge you to go through the list of the top companies in this industry right now. None of them are going to say recruiting. None of them are going to say talent. So do not confine your brand to these words. Do not let prospects, competitors, investors, observers, the general public, etc. Do not let anyone put you into a nice, neat box. Because if you're doing this right, you're not like everybody else. You can't be defined by these words. You're different than that. And you're more than that. You're bigger than that. So let's think a lot bigger when we think about brand. If you become the biggest brand in the world, what would be your brand? And this is how I want you to start thinking about your brand. Imagine that this thing just explodes. right? It gets larger than life, and you become like an everything company, competing with the likes of like Walmart and Amazon, Google and Apple. Notice that Google is not Google search engines. Notice that Apple is not Apple computers. Notice that Walmart is not Walmart retail. Everybody knows what they are without these words. Amazon is not Amazon online commerce, and yet you know exactly what Amazon is. So your brand transcends what you think it does. And that's how you build a good brand. So I want you to start out believing that you are actually competing with these massive companies. So now ask yourself, what is my brand? Now your answer to this question is going to be a lot different at this point. It's going to be one word. It's going to roll off the tongue. It's going to be fun to say. It's going to be attractive in and of itself. It's going to have the capacity for massive things. It's going to have the runway to steamroll everything in its path. But it's also going to be unique, and that's the hard part. So how do you come up with something that's short, catchy, and unique in this day and age? Because you're going to notice that people have already registered even like altered words that are not even words in the English dictionary. So you can scarcely find even like misspelled words in terms of the domains being available. But you can find some, and you can land on that name that really grabs you. And when you read it, you will say, aha, I like that. That's the one. Chat GPT is a good start for this because you can start getting it to spit out hundreds and hundreds of names. And I do recommend that you look at hundreds, maybe thousands. Get it to spit out hundreds. Tell it what you want. Tell it what kind of words you like. Tell it how you want those words altered. Tell it you want maybe single syllable words that are unique and spelled unlike anything else in the English language. Maybe you want compound words. So give it that fundamental instruction. Tell it that you don't want it repeating its answers because it will start to repeat its answers. The beauty of AI is that you can get it to make new combinations that have not really been used before, and you can tell it to give you as many as you want. So you could do this for like 3 days straight. You can do it for a whole week, and sooner or later, you will find your name. When you do, I want you to send it to me. Okay, send me your name, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and I'm going to let you know whether I think it's big enough for you, and I'll let you know if I think it's the one. Overall, I recommend that you do not skip this step. This is a huge step. I've heard some business gurus out there say, oh, you know what, you don't want to just sit around and do nothing worrying about the name. You got to just pick one and go with it and get moving. And for a while, I believe that completely. And to some degree, it is good advice in the sense that we need to take action. Taking action is extremely important, but actively choosing a name in the way that I'm recommending here, you are taking action. Lying in bed, sitting around on a couch thinking about it, you're not procrastinating, you're actually taking action, you're actively researching, and you're actively doing whatever it takes to find that name that you're willing to throw everything you've got behind. Website right. Let's talk about your website. So I've seen countless recruitment entrepreneurs just like throw up any old website. And the vast majority of them would be better off to have no website than the website that they have. So I've run absolutely countless campaigns that track clicks and track opens and track replies. And I can tell you that when you are doing outreach to your prospects, very few of them are replying in relation to how many are clicking. And where is it that you think they are clicking? Well, they're clicking on your website. Your website is a massive deciding factor on whether or not they are going to do business with you now or in the future. Your website is not just something that says, hi, I exist. It's much more than that. It's like a massive component to the client acquisition process. If your website is doing its job, then it should be enabling 50 to 75% of the deal being decided prior to a prospect ever speaking to you. Your website needs to remove the frictions of doing business. Most websites of small staffing and recruiting firms just actually, they add frictions. And therefore, the rest of the process has to make up for all of the frictions that your website has created. So how do we create a website that removes frictions rather than creating them? Well, first of all, stop trying to design the website yourself. You're trying to save a few bucks. I get it. I can build websites too. I can build good websites. My websites are fine, but I don't build them anymore. I don't have time. You also don't have time. Secondly, I don't want to do it. You probably don't want to do it, which is why you're going to try to get it over with and just throw up whatever. Thirdly, even if you have the ability to do it and to figure it out, this is not your primary skill set, and this is not your claim to fame. This is not your best way to leverage your time. So we need to get the right people in place to do this thing right. The right website gives you confidence. Okay, you're willing to go out there and plant your flag in the ground and declare your name to the world when you know that your breadcrumb will lead them back to something that helps you and that you can be proud of, to something that helps you establish your name and helps you establish who you are. Your website should show your prospect that you are right for them. They should already know that you're right for them prior to them speaking to you. Your website should almost feel like their website. It should remind them of themselves. This is part of niching the right way. Everything you do and everything you say should be engineered to be reminiscent of your target market. The very best niche recruiting websites are almost hard to peg as recruiting websites. You might have to stop and pause for a moment and say, hey, is this a medical technology company or a recruiting company? Is this a semiconductor company or a recruiting company? Is this an aerospace company or a recruiting company? Is this a private equity company or a recruiting company? Is this an optometry company that is like expanding and buying multiple offices, or is this a recruiting company? So it should literally be a question that needs to be answered for a moment when anybody visits your website. That's how well positioned your website should be for your niche. Therefore, you need to take your cues more from your market than from your competitors. All right, so that's the website. Now we got to email right. Let's talk about emailing right. I'm going to read for you a very typical email that is sent out from staffing and recruiting companies in the name of client acquisition. And I see this absolutely all the time. And it's really good if you're just looking to get like one lead every 6 months. However, if you're looking to make money, it's not good because it's what absolutely every recruiting company sends. And companies don't care. And they're getting tired of it. All right, so here it is. By the way, this is a real email. So he said, the subject is boost your team's potential with our flexible workforce. And the body says, dear name, I hope this message finds you well. We understand that as the business landscape evolves, so do your staffing needs. I'm writing to check on you to see areas where we can be of value to your organization. Also checking if the positions mentioned below are still open to fill, so we can discuss how our staffing solutions can drive your business forward, ensuring you have the right talent at the right time. And then they mention a couple of positions that they found on the website. Looking forward to making your workforce dreams a reality. Best regards. Obviously, this email was sent out from a company that is more focused on staffing than they are on direct hire recruiting, but it's easy to change up a few words to have it applicable for basically anything. I know the people who sent out this email, and I know that they received one lead in 1 year from this approach. One lead in 1 year is not going to work for you, right? You need more than one lead in 1 year. You need multiple leads every day. You need dozens of leads every week. So now I'm going to show you how to get hundreds of leads rather than one lead. No, I'm not going to get you to make a video and send it to your prospects. I'm not going to have you personalize it for every single prospect that may be relevant to you. Instead, the operative principle is to pitch an inventory. So what motivates a prospect to take action is not that you promise that you can do something. People make promises all day. Anybody can make any promise at any time. I can open up any business in any industry right now and start making promises. And I may have no idea on whether or not I can fulfill them. And that is what your prospect is thinking. Your prospect is thinking when they receive the above email, they're thinking, fascinating. We've already engaged half a dozen agencies who have not been able to find these people reliably. And now this agency is promising that they can. Why should I believe them? So when a prospect truly has pain, they're not just going to believe that you can solve it for them. Right? They've already been to many doctors. They've already seen the specialists about it. They've started listening to the podcasts on alternative medicine. They want somebody who can demonstrate, finally, that they know about this type of pain and how to manage it. And that's where your email comes in, to show rather than tell. So your email needs to do rather than promise. This is what makes your email infinitely more effective than a promise email. So you're going to make demonstration emails. Your prospect knows what kind of medicine they need to cure their pain. The problem is that they can't get it. It's on back order. It's an extremely high demand. It's extremely limited supply. You need a special prescription, and it can only be made by like the Tibetan mountain people by whom the medicine has to be transported by Sherpa and airlifted across continents. It's handmade, and there's a huge waiting list for it. But you need to paint a picture of it on your shelf and show it to them right there. All you have to do is take it off your shelf and hand it to them, and all they'll have to do is sign your agreement, and they can have this medicine. They could have it now. They wouldn't have to wait for the mountain Sherpa and all the long delays. So this is the message that your email must incorporate. It's a demonstration of the inventory that you have, a selected inventory specifically for a specific type of pain, curated for a specific type of client, and they can have it right now. So it's very simple to implement this. Every company lists their pain right on their website. They'll tell you exactly what ails them. And oftentimes it's a certain type of pain that's going to motivate them to consider new vendors with a different selection of medicine. So go on their website and determine what you think their greatest pain is. So let me jump out of the metaphor for a second and tell you how this applies to staffing and recruiting. If a company fits within your sweet spot of prospects, they will have met a number of parameters. They will be not too big and not too small. They will fit the avatar of the type of company that you can service and that your website is geared for. They will have more job openings than their internal talent team can reasonably fulfill themselves. They will have pain when it comes to hiring. They will have difficulty attracting the right candidates on their own. All of this information regarding who they need is usually right on their careers page. So you need to go to their careers page and decide what their top pain truly is. Oftentimes, it's something rural. It's that in-person job when most people in the market want remote. It's that specialized skill set with a talent pool that may be extremely small. If you can pitch your inventory for that specific pain point, this is often what's going to help you break into an account. Now, listen, I get it. You actually want to fill those other orders, right? You want the easier orders. You want the ones that you can make more money on the fastest, and that makes total sense. But here's the beauty of it. Once you fill that tough one, they're going to give you the others as well. So first, what you do is you break into the account by solving the top most acute pain of an organization. This is how you gain their trust. Now you can get access to those roles that you really want to fill. Guess what else? The email that I'm recommending that you write is going to take you about 30 seconds. We're not talking about a difficult email to write. It's extremely easy. It should not be long. It should not be a wall of text. It should not have a lot of over-the-top marketing language. It should not have numerous pleasantries sprinkled within it. This is not how high-value people communicate, and high-value people communicate in very simple manners. They drive right to the point. They don't talk about the weather. They don't sign off with pleasantries necessarily. They're not interested in your feelings. So just think back to the last time that you received a long multi-paragraph email from a C-level executive. How many times did that happen? Just count it up real quick. Zero times. It happens 0 times. These people are not sitting down to write you Dear John letters. They are usually responding from their mobile phones, and you're going to get one line. So why are you trying to communicate with them in a way that does not resemble how they communicate? You got to stop yourself from this ridiculous impulse to communicate in a way that is different from how they communicate. You need to communicate like them, and they communicate in text messages. It might be in an email, but it's like a text message. So therefore, your email needs to be not much more than a text message. This is what gets responses. Walls of text do not get responses. Now here's an example of a quick and simple message that we can easily personalize, and it gets massive results. Here we go. Hi, first name. I'm working with a newly relocated occupational therapist who has 5+ years experience in DBT. I noticed CGH has an open role that looks well suited and wanted to explore if there may be an opportunity for a partnership to cover the vacancy. Are you leading the hiring efforts on this one, and is it still a need? Thank you. So far, this email template is getting a 50% response rate. Yes, you heard that right. I'm not talking about open rate. So let's talk about the numerous effective elements of this message. First, it's immediately addressing what you know is a need or a pain point for the organization. Second, it's talking about somebody who's newly relocated, which right away tells the prospect that this person is not in their current network and is not in the pool of candidates that they've already considered. Third, it's talking about a critical skill set that is mentioned in the job description of the advertisement. Fourth, it's indicating that we're looking for a partnership and we're not just looking to send over a free candidate to this company. So if they're going to respond back, they better be ready to engage with our services and pay the fees. So this is important for qualifying the prospect as a potential client. Fifth, the call to action is not attempting to just go straight for the jugular in terms of booking a meeting right off the bat. Instead, what we're looking to do is start a dialogue or a conversation. And this is what's going to lead us into the section of this video on following up right. Generating the lead is only part of the battle. How you respond is going to be massive. So let's talk about follow up right. Okay, let's talk in terms of the follow up. So in the event that you do not get a response to this email, right, in a lot of cases, that's because you didn't throw out the right bait. You did not talk about the medicine for the right ailment. I'm going to switch between like a pain medicine analogy and a bait fishing analogy here. And they're going to be kind of interchangeable, but they're both good for thinking about the client acquisition process. So a lot of times, if you're not getting a response, it's just because you did not use the bait that the fish were hungry for that day. For those of you who are experienced with fishing, you know that the fish are hungry for different things on different days. You know, I'm not an expert fisherman, but this is just like the basic thing that I know about fishing. Some days are just the right times. They're going crazy for worms. Some days are just the right times where they're going crazy for minnows. Sometimes they're going crazy for these like watermelon, chartreuse, plastic grub baits. The fish are hungry for different things at different times. You can't just assume that the fish are going to be hungry for that bait that you throw in front of them every single time. If they don't bite, you just like pack up your tackle box and go home. Hopefully you came to the water that day with more than one type of bait. If they don't respond to the first bait, you got to tie another one on. In this example, we tried an occupational therapist. Maybe it didn't get a response. Maybe through tracking our clicks and opens, we see that it was open and it was clicked, but it was not responded to. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that there's a good chance that there was some level of interest in the messaging, that there was a moderate level of interest. There maybe just wasn't quite enough interest to take time out of someone's day to respond. But if there's an open and a click, we can actually move that into what I call a hotspot list. Now, for the next time you throw a bait, you're not just going to be playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and like pick any old bait out of your tackle box. You got to like read the situation. You got to read the waters, got to read the weather, got to read the structure of the lake. You got to look at the conditions. Or flipping back to the medical analogy, you got to look for a different pain. It's really simple to do. You just go back to the careers page. A night shift. How did I not see this before? They need somebody on nights. But guess what? It's not easy to find people who want to work nights, and that's an indicator of pain. Right? Just use your common sense. Maybe the next bait that you throw out is somebody who's willing to work nights. Maybe the next bait that you throw out is some super niche skill set that the careers page is indicating that they're looking for. Maybe the next bait that you throw out is an in-person engineer that would traditionally be looking for a remote role. Maybe the next bait that you throw out is someone who's experienced in an extremely rare technology. Maybe the next bait that you throw out is someone with special top secret clearance. Sooner or later, the fish are going to bite. They can't resist. The bait that you're throwing out is just too good. They're going to bite without the content. They're not going to care about your social media feed. The fish are going to bite without all of that. Before the fish bite, though, they are going to go to your website. So make sure that's good. Now, what do you do when the fish bite? Have you ever had a fish bite only to not be able to get them in the net? Can't get them in the boat. Maybe you've got the wrong line and it snaps. You got the wrong pound test, fish snaps off. Maybe your bait wasn't tied on the right way. Maybe you didn't hold your rod the right way. Maybe you didn't reel fast enough. Maybe you reeled too fast. Okay, so let's now talk about how we get that fish all the way to the boat. You got to converse right. What do you think is going to happen when a prospect is interested in the bait? What do you think is going to happen when they bite? Okay, well, the smart ones are going to say, cool, yeah, interesting. Let's jump on a call to discuss your fees. That's the best case scenario, but that's not going to happen all the time. A lot of times what you're going to get is, okay, send me the resume. If you haven't done this before, if you're doing the wrong thing, you might at this point actually send a resume. That's not the right thing to do. There's a number of reasons for why that's not the right thing to do. Even if you're redacting all the information, even if you're making it so that there's no possible way that the prospect could track this person down, it's still not a good idea to send a resume. At no point are you sending any sort of resume, documentation, or anything that resembles a resume until there's a signed agreement. So let's discuss why you are not sending a resume. First of all, there's a good chance that this candidate, if they're real, does not know that they're being marketed to this company. And therefore, they have not given their consent to have their information shared with this company. The candidate needs to buy into this company before they agree to having you share their information with the company. So that's essentially what your response would be. At no point are you obligated to give a resume in this process. So I want you to try this. Here's a good response. Thanks, name. Absolutely, I'm happy to send over a resume. However, this candidate is being selective and is relatively passive. Therefore, I'd like to ensure we have their buy-in prior to sharing their information. Are you able to jump on a 15-minute call Thursday at 3 p.m. so we can sync on this? You're actually going to find that very few prospects actually say no to this. Okay, it's going to make perfect sense to them. You need to know about the employer value proposition before you can sell it to your candidate. Why would your candidate want to just go to some random company and interview? If the candidate's any good, they're going to want to know more about this company. They're going to want to know more about the role, about the internal insights of the job itself. Not only that, but you're not willing to play ball until there's an agreement on terms. There also needs to be an agreement on fees. There needs to be a working relationship established. And that brings us to the last section of this video, which is you got to close right. To get that agreement signed, you have to close. Okay, you got to close the business. You have to make the deal. So to make the deal, you're usually going to want to get on some kind of meeting. The ideal situation is a virtual meeting over video. But in some niches, you're going to find that this is not something that the prospects are super accustomed to doing. For example, I found that in some labor-related niches or construction niches or niches of that nature, a lot of times they just like doing it by a phone call, and that's what's going to get it done. But in most cases, you're going to be able to set up a virtual meeting. By the way, if you want more guidance and a reference manual and cheat sheet on how to conduct this meeting, I recommend you go and get the 7-Figure Staffing Sales Conversation Call Manual. You can grab that over at 7figurestaffing.com/call manual, 100% free. You will have to sign up to the email list, but I'm assuming you're not going to mind because I send a whole bunch of free, helpful content just like this to that list. So in this call, you're trying to do about 3 things or so. Number 1 is you're trying to establish your value proposition, right? What sort of value do you bring to this market? Why is the client going to get more value than they would from other vendors? Why is it worth it to them to pay your fee? Second is you're going to establish that the client is willing to pay your fees, and you're going to come to an agreement usually on what those fees might look like. Third is you want to find out more about this company and you want to get them to invest a little bit of time with you so that you can turn around and pitch this company to your candidates and sell them on the opportunity. So in other words, you want to pick up the orders and understand the employer value proposition. So the first thing I like to do in these calls is to get the client to dwell in their pain a little bit just by making a problem statement. Okay, so the way I get them to do this is by simply asking them what motivated them to get on the call. So I'll simply ask them, thanks for joining us today, setting aside the time. What is it that motivated you to set up a call with us today? So they might say, well, you said you had a candidate that I'd be interested in. We've got a problem filling this role for XYZ reasons. They don't, and if they don't lay out what those reasons are for the pain point, then you want to use more questions to draw that out. So you might say, what are the challenges that you've had in filling this role. What steps have you taken so far to fill this role, and why do you feel they haven't worked out? And then you want to go ahead and qualify this company as a prospect. Do you already have approval to use third-party vendors like us to help you solve this problem? It's good to understand where they stand on this. It's good to know what the approval process looks like. If they already use other vendors, this is the best case scenario. Because if they already use other vendors, it's good to get an understanding of what they're accustomed to for price. So when it comes to discussing price, it's always best to get the prospect to talk about price first. This is just like negotiating 101. You never want to be the first person to say a number. What if you had in your mind 18% and they have in their mind 25%? If you shoot first and you say 18%, you just missed out on thousands and thousands of dollars. But if they say, we're working with 2 vendors already at 25%, well, guess what? You just made way more money than you were about to if you would have talked about the number in your head. Here's a good way to frame this question. You can say, just so we can make sure that we're competitive, are you comfortable discussing the types of fees that you're already paying? When you frame the question in this way, they will often be very transparent about the types of pricing that they're working with. Okay, they don't want you to charge more than their current vendors. So they're going to appreciate the fact that they can get you for the same price when you seem to have better upside. Now, what about the prospects who have never used an agency before? So with these folks, you're really going to have to educate them, especially when it comes to price. A lot of times your price is going to be like sticker shock to them, and they're not going to be able to wrap their head around why they should pay you this money. And it's very simple to justify your fees, but you have to be careful of something. You have to be very careful to not get into any arguments or to not use like belittling language with your prospect, because your prospect can take offense if you use the wrong tactics to help them understand that it actually makes sense for them to pay your fees. A lot of prospects are going to be under the impression that it's actually free for them to do the hiring. They think that they don't have to pay anything by keeping this function in-house. So now you have to help them draw their own conclusion about why this is absolutely ridiculous. Nobody in the world would be using recruiting services if it was wildly more expensive than handling the function in-house. The whole reason why recruiting services are used by the vast majority of companies is because it's actually cheaper on the bottom line to leverage this type of service. But somebody who's not accustomed to doing like a full evaluation of all the costs of hiring might be completely unaware of why this is. So a lot of prospects are going to think that they just like post an ad and they get good candidates that they can hire. They think it's actually cheaper just to leave an ad posted for a whole year until they finally get the right candidate. But this is, of course, almost insane. But you can't tell them that it's insane. You simply have to remind them of the costs and the money they're losing by doing this. So here's the best way to frame it. You can say, a lot of our clients originally thought the very same thing. When you're not accustomed to using recruiting agencies, there can be some sticker shock with the pricing, but there are a lot of things that we invest in that justify those fees. Meanwhile, what we found is that when they did a full analysis, our clients found that they were saving on average about $400,000 annually by using our service. And that's going to be a really important line, what I just said right there, because that's going to make their ears perk up. On average, they save $400,000 annually? Whoa. You got some explaining to do, buddy. No problem. Let me tell you why. The obvious cost is advertising, right? We all know we have to spend on advertising. Indeed gets more and more expensive every single year. ZipRecruiter gets more expensive every year. All of the job advertising websites get way more expensive every single year. So you've got huge costs there, but that's not even your biggest cost. Tools. If you're not using tools, you're not getting the right candidates these days. There's been a massive revolution in the recruiting industry technologically over the last few years, and these tools are not cheap. So those are huge investments that we already pay for. So we can save that investment for you. Internal team. If you're paying people to recruit for you, that's obviously an ongoing cost, and there may be more costs than you're considering associated with this. Not only do you have to pay their salaries, you have to pay their source deductions, you have to pay their taxes, you have to pay their benefits, you have to pay their onboarding costs, their offboarding costs, you have to pay for seasonal swing adjustments when you're not as busy. You're not hiring as much. For every single change in the business or in the market, there's a dollar sign attached to it, whole bunch of zeros that you're going to have to pay. Not only that, but these people have to be trained and managed. So with every internal team member, there's also a management cost and a training cost associated with them. And those are massive fees. When you go with us, you're not training anybody. We handle it. When you go with us, you don't have to manage anybody. Next, there's an opportunity cost, right? Time, energy, budget that could be devoted to other tasks. Obviously, staffing and recruiting is not your core business. It's our core business. So, why would you add another business inside of a business? You have to pay for solving this problem. You have to devote resources to the problem. You have to devote people's time and energy to that problem. You have to devote budget to that problem. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Not only that, there's a cost to time to fill. Internal teams are on average well behind recruiting agencies in time to fill data. And for each day that your position goes unfilled, you're incurring a cost. If there's no cost associated with a position going unfilled, you got to reevaluate why you're hiring for that role in the first place. So the cost of that role being unfilled is at least as much as the salary that you're going to be paying for it. And if it's not, then you don't need to hire. So if the hire is justified in the first place, then you're incurring a cost by not hiring this person right now. Our time to fill is down to 11.5 days. The average for in-house teams in your market is 60 days plus. So as you can see, there's a huge gap when it comes to cost in this area. So I just gave you guys like a ton of ammunition to use when it comes to price, objection handling. You're probably not going to empty that whole round of ammunition every single time, but as you can see, it's going to give you a ton of ammunition to use. The next thing I like to do is talk about the cost model comparison. Now, we're going to offer a number of different pricing tiers and tiers of service. We're going to incentivize being paid up front. In other words, retainer business. Now, I'm not going to go through that right now because this video could go on and on for days and days. But I do have a free resource. It's a pricing model swipe file that outlines all of the ways that you can structure your pricing to incentivize getting paid up front and to give choice to your prospects. You can get that at sevenfigurestaffing.com/price. And also, everything that I just said in terms of handling price objections, we can put in a cost model analysis piece of collateral that you can send to your prospects after the call. The reason why this is so important is because a lot of times you're going to be having a call with like the department head who is really interested in your service. But if you're dealing with a larger company, what's going to happen is that person now has to take what you just said and sell it to their superior or sell it to another department like HR, procurement, or vendor management. And chances are that they're not going to be able to sell it as well as you can. So you need to arm them with what they need to get buy-in from their relevant stakeholders to onboard you as a vendor. Okay, so don't just trust that they can make this happen without you. You need to give them something to make it easier, and you're in luck, because I've already built it for you. So you can just go and get the price model comparison collateral swipe document from sevenfigurestaffing.com/price model. Just to recap, what I've given you is 3 things in addition to all the information in this video. You've got the sales conversation call manual that you can get at sevenfigurestaffing.com/call manual. You got the price structure swipe document that you can get at sevenfigurestaffing.com/price. You've got the price model comparison collateral document that you can use to build collateral to send as a follow-up to your prospect after you call. And you can get that at sevenfigurestaffing.com/price model. I've given way too much stuff to you guys today. Gotta stop talking. Stop giving away all this free, amazing stuff. By the way, if you want to talk to me directly, book a call at go.onesub.com/Ryan Lecour. In the meantime, have fun out there, and I'll see you guys in the next video.